The alert hit my secure terminal at 16:47 hours on a Friday. Routine background check flagged for manual review. Nothing unusual about that. I process dozens every week as part of my job in military intelligence. What made my hands freeze over the keyboard was the name on the file, Michael David Chen. My sister's fiancé. The man she was planning to marry in 4 months. I sat there staring at the screen, professional training warring with personal panic, knowing that what I was about to discover would either confirm my instincts or destroy my relationship with my sister forever. I have never told my sister Emma that I ran her fiancé through every security database I had access to. Not when she got engaged, not when the flags started appearing, and definitely not when I realized the man she loved didn't actually exist. Some people think family means trusting blindly. I think family means protecting the people you love, even when they don't want to be protected. Especially then. My job in military intelligence taught me that lesson in the hardest way possible. We don't deal in feelings or hunches. We deal in verifiable facts, documented evidence, patterns that emerge when you know what you're looking for. And from the moment Emma brought Michael home to meet the family, I'd been looking. Not because I'm cynical or suspicious by nature. Because I'm trained to notice inconsistencies, and Michael was full of them. Small things at first. The way he'd pause fractionally before answering questions about his past. How his stories about college changed slightly each time he told them. The vague references to a childhood he never quite detailed. Normal people might dismiss these as nerves or poor memory. I documented them. Dates, statements, contradictions. Not in any official capacity, just personal notes. Because in my line of work, you learn that people who have nothing to hide don't avoid details. They overflow with them. Emma met Michael through a dating app 6 months before she brought him to dinner. He was charming, attentive, everything she'd been looking for after a string of failed relationships. He worked in finance, he said, had a degree from Boston University, grew up in the Pacific Northwest, parents both deceased, no siblings, clean slate, fresh start. Perfect for someone who wanted to build a future without complications from the past. Too perfect, actually. That should have been the first red flag. In intelligence work, we have a saying. If a story has no rough edges, someone sanded them off intentionally. But I didn't say that to Emma. I smiled, shook Michael's hand, made small talk over dinner, watched him interact with our parents, with Emma, with me. He was good. Confident, but not arrogant. Engaged, but not intrusive. He asked about my work in vague, respectful terms, didn't push when I gave vague answers. Military intelligence must be intense, he'd said. I imagine you can't talk about most of what you do. That's accurate, I'd replied, but the work is rewarding. He'd nodded, moved on to another topic. At the time, I thought he was being polite. Looking back, I wonder if he was relieved I didn't ask him to elaborate on his own background. After that dinner, I did what I always do when something doesn't sit right. I observed, I listened, I documented. Not through official channels, not yet, just keeping mental notes of the things that didn't quite align. Michael said he worked at a financial firm downtown. I looked up the company, confirmed it existed, but when I casually mentioned a restaurant near their office building, he didn't recognize the name. Small thing. Could mean nothing. I filed it away. He mentioned going to Boston University. I have a friend who went there, graduated 2 years after Michael's claimed graduation date. I asked her to look him up in the alumni directory. No record. Could be a privacy setting, she'd said. Not everyone keeps their info public. True. Another small thing. Filed away. His parents died in a car accident, he said. 10 years ago, before he met Emma. Tragic, but it meant no family for Emma to meet. No one to ask questions about his childhood, no one to verify his stories. Convenient, very convenient. I didn't mention any of this to Emma, because I had suspicions, not proof, and my sister was happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. She talked about wedding plans, about their future, about finally finding someone who treated her right. How do you tell someone that their happiness might be built on lies when all you have are inconsistencies and gut feelings? You don't. Not if you value the relationship. So I waited. And I documented. And I hoped I was wrong. Then came the day Michael's name appeared on my terminal. Standard background check, flagged for review. Not for anything I had initiated. Pure coincidence. Or maybe not coincidence at all. Maybe the universe has a way of bringing things to light when they need to be seen. The file was sparse. Too sparse. Michael David Chen, age 34. Current residence matching the address Emma had mentioned. Employment listed as financial analyst. No criminal record. No red flags in the initial automated screening. But something had triggered the manual review protocol. I dug deeper. Social Security number verification came back inconsistent. The number was valid, but it had been issued to a different name. Birth records didn't match the information he'd provided. The Boston University degree couldn't be confirmed because there was no record of a Michael David Chen graduating in that time frame. His employment history before 3 years ago didn't exist. Not hidden behind privacy settings. Didn't exist. As if Michael David Chen had materialized out of nothing 36 months ago and started building a life from scratch. I sat back from my terminal, professional detachment cracking under personal dread. This wasn't a case of someone fudging a resume. This was identity fabrication. Systematic, deliberate, complete. I pulled up the security protocols for severe discrepancy investigation. Cross-referenced his information through databases I only accessed for national security matters. That's when the real picture started forming. The name Michael David Chen was real. The person who owned that name had died 7 years ago in a car accident. Not his parents. Him. Age 27, no surviving family, buried in a small cemetery outside Portland. Someone had taken his identity and rebuilt it. I ran facial recognition on the photos Emma had shared with family. Nothing came back. Whoever this man was, he'd never been photographed in any database I could access. That was almost impossible unless someone was actively avoiding documentation. No driver's license photos. No passport records. No social media history before 3 years ago. He was a ghost. A very carefully constructed ghost who was now engaged to my sister. I closed the file on my terminal, my hands shaking in a way they never did during actual intelligence work. Because this wasn't abstract. This was Emma. And I had to decide what to do next. Professional protocol was clear. Report the discrepancy, flag the identity theft, initiate a full investigation. But professional protocol didn't account for the fact that the person being investigated was living with my sister, planning a future with her, possibly putting her at risk. I couldn't tell Emma. Not yet. Not without more information. Because right now, all I had was proof that Michael wasn't who he said he was. I didn't know who he actually was, or why he'd fabricated an identity, or what his intentions were toward my sister. And if I went to Emma with incomplete information, she'd either think I was lying or think I was trying to sabotage her relationship out of jealousy. I'd seen it happen before. People choosing the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth until it was too late. So I did what my training taught me. I expanded the investigation, carefully, quietly, documenting everything. I requested deeper background checks through the proper channels, framing it as routine security review. I accessed databases that tracked financial patterns, looking for any evidence of fraud or theft. I searched for any connection between the false identity and criminal activity. What I found was worse than I expected and harder to explain than I feared. The man calling himself Michael David Chen had created this identity 3 years ago, right around the time he started his supposed job in finance. But before that, there were fragments. A different name, partial records, hints of someone who'd disappeared from another city after a series of romance scams targeting women for money. The MO was consistent. Create false identity, build trust through relationship, gain access to finances, disappear before anyone realized the truth. He'd done it before, multiple times. And now he was doing it to my sister. I documented everything, cross-referenced the pattern, found 3 other women in 3 other cities who'd reported similar experiences to local police. Each time the man had used a different name, a different background story, but the approach was the same. Online dating, rapid escalation to serious relationship, eventual financial requests framed as temporary needs or shared investments. By the time the women realized something was wrong, he was gone, and they were out thousands of dollars. Emma hadn't mentioned Michael asking for money, yet. But they'd been dating less than a year. The others had been in relationships for 12 to 18 months before the financial requests started, right around the same timeline as Emma's wedding date. I felt sick. Professionally detached, I could analyze the pattern, predict the next steps. Personally invested, I was watching my sister walk toward a trap I couldn't warn her about without proof she'd believe. I couldn't go to Emma with accusations. She'd defend him, cut me out of her life, marry him anyway. I'd seen it happen in intelligence briefings, how people reject information that contradicts what they want to believe. Emma wanted to believe Michael loved her. Any evidence to the contrary would be interpreted as jealousy, overreach, sisterly interference. I needed irrefutable proof, and I needed it before the wedding. 4 months wasn't much time. I expanded my investigation beyond official channels, used contacts in financial fraud prevention to run discreet inquiries, had a colleague in another division check credit reports and banking patterns. Everything pointed the same direction. The man Emma knew as Michael had systematically built this identity to defraud vulnerable women through long-term relationships. The wedding wasn't the goal. Access to joint finances was. He was playing a long game, and my sister was the mark. 3 months before the wedding, I had enough. Documentation linking him to 3 previous romance frauds under different identities. Proof that his current identity was stolen. Evidence that every detail of his background was fabricated. And a pattern showing he would likely disappear the moment he had access to Emma's finances, leaving her with debt and devastation. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. But I also couldn't go to Emma alone. She'd never believe me. I needed backup. I needed someone she trusted who could verify what I'd found. I needed Mom. I drove to my parents' house on a Saturday, knowing Emma wouldn't be there. She and Michael had plans. I sat Mom down at the kitchen table and spread out the evidence. Not everything, just enough. Proof that Michael's identity was false. Documentation showing the name he was using belonged to someone who'd died years ago. My mother went pale. "This can't be right," she said. "Why would he lie about something like this?" "Because he's done it before. This is what he does. Creates false identities, finds women through dating apps, builds relationships until he can access their money. Then he disappears." Emma would never fall for something like that. Emma has already fallen for it. She just doesn't know it yet. My mother looked at the documents, then at me. "How did you find this?" I explained my job, my access, the background check that had flagged his information. I didn't tell her I'd been suspicious from the start. That would sound like I'd been investigating him all along, which was partly true, but not something I needed her to focus on. "We have to tell her," Mom said. "Not yet," I replied. "If we tell her now, she'll think we're lying. She'll marry him anyway just to prove us wrong. We need to bring in authorities, file a formal report, let law enforcement handle it. That will take too long. The wedding is in 3 months. Then we accelerate, but we do this right. We can't just accuse him, we need him arrested." My mother nodded, understanding settling into determination. Together, we contacted the FBI's Financial Fraud Division, submitted the evidence I'd compiled, explained the pattern, the stolen identity, the previous victims. They took it seriously. Within a week, they'd opened an investigation. Within 2 weeks, they confirmed my findings. Within 3, they had enough to bring charges. The arrest happened on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there, deliberately stayed at work, didn't want Emma to associate me directly with what was about to happen. Federal agents arrived at Michael's office, arrested him for identity theft and wire fraud related to the previous romance scams. Emma got the call from our mother, who'd been waiting at home for exactly this moment. I heard about it later, from Mom, from Emma's frantic voicemails, from the texts that came in waves. Confused, angry, desperate. "They arrested Michael. They're saying he's not who he says he is. This is insane. Someone made a mistake. I need you to fix this." I didn't respond immediately. Let her process. Let the reality sink in. That evening, I went to her apartment. She opened the door looking wrecked, eyes swollen from crying, still in shock. "Tell me this is a mistake," she said. "Tell me your contacts in intelligence screwed up." I walked in, sat down, pulled out a folder. Not the full file, just the essentials. Proof that Michael David Chen died 7 years ago. Evidence that the man she knew had used 3 different identities in 3 different cities. Documentation of the other women he'd defrauded. Emma read through it slowly. I watched her face change. Denial, confusion, anger, grief. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "I suspected from the beginning. I had proof 2 months ago." 2 months? Her voice cracked. "You've known for 2 months and didn't tell me?" "I couldn't tell you without documentation you'd believe. You would have married him anyway, cut me out of your life and let him drain your accounts. I needed evidence strong enough to stop him legally. You should have trusted me." "I did trust you. I trusted that you'd do what anyone in love does, defend the person you believed in. That's not weakness, Emma. That's human. But I couldn't let being human destroy your life." She stared at the papers. "Who is he really?" "I don't know. The FBI is trying to determine his actual identity, but whoever he is, he's done this before, multiple times, and you were next." Emma sat silent for a long time. Then, quietly, "I thought I was safe with you watching out for me, but I didn't even know you were watching." That's how protection works sometimes, quietly, from a distance, until the moment it has to be loud. She didn't thank me. Not then. She asked me to leave, said she needed space to process. I understood. What I'd done had saved her financially, but destroyed her emotionally. The man she loved didn't exist. The future she'd planned was built on lies, and I was the person who'd revealed that truth. I left her apartment, drove back to base, sat in my quarters, and felt the weight of what I'd done. Professionally, I'd executed correctly. Identified a threat, gathered evidence, neutralized it through proper channels. Personally, I'd shattered my sister's world. Sometimes those things are the same thing. Sometimes doing the right thing means causing harm in the short term to prevent devastation in the long term. Intelligence work teaches you that. Family sometimes makes you doubt it. The investigation continued. The FBI identified the man as Marcus Sullivan, wanted for fraud in 4 states. He'd been running romance scams for nearly a decade, using different identities, targeting women specifically connected to military families because of the access to benefits and stable finances. Emma had been perfect for him. Military sister, stable job, good credit, trusting nature. He'd planned to marry her, drain her accounts slowly over 2 years, then disappear with a manufactured crisis that would leave her in debt and him untraceable. When the details emerged in court filings, Emma read them. All of them. She saw the pattern, the other victims, the systematic way he'd built trust just to exploit it. She called me. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "For thinking you were interfering. For not trusting that you knew what you were doing. You had every right to be angry. I took away something you loved. You took away something that was destroying me in slow motion. I just couldn't see it yet." We talked for hours that night. About the red flags she'd ignored because she wanted to believe. About the ways he'd isolated her from friends while making it seem natural. About the financial plans he'd suggested that would have given him access to everything she had. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you see it when I couldn't?" "Because it's my job to see patterns that don't fit. And because I love you enough to look for them even when I didn't want to find them." The trial was quick. Marcus Sullivan took a plea deal to avoid federal charges carrying decades in prison. He admitted to fraud, to identity theft, to targeting Emma specifically. He showed no remorse, just calculation. He'd done the math on prison time versus trial risk and made the optimal choice. Even in custody, he was running scams. After it was over, Emma moved forward. Slowly, with therapy, with support. She rebuilt her life, more carefully this time, more aware of the signs I'd tried to protect her from. She still dates, still trusts people, still believes in building a future with someone. But now she knows that trust should be verified. That love doesn't mean abandoning caution. We're closer now than we were before. Not despite what happened, but because of it. She knows I'll always have her back, even when having her back means doing things she doesn't understand or agree with in the moment. And I know she'll listen when I raise concerns, even if she doesn't want to hear them. That's family, real family, not blind trust, informed trust, built on evidence that sometimes hurts. If you're listening to this and something feels familiar, if you've ever had someone in your life who seemed perfect until the cracks started showing, I want you to know this. Trust your instincts, but verify them. Love doesn't mean ignoring red flags. It means caring enough to look at them honestly. And if someone you care about is being targeted, don't wait for perfect proof. Document what you see. Report what you find. Protect people even when they don't want to be protected. Sometimes that makes you the villain temporarily. But when the truth comes out, it makes you the person who cared enough to act. Have you ever had to investigate someone your family trusted? Would you have done what I did? Leave a comment below and tell me where you're listening from. This is one, and we share stories like this every day. Stories about protection, evidence, and the moment when love means telling uncomfortable truths. If you don't want to miss the next one, subscribe to one and stay with us. Let's keep protecting the people we love, together.